right, Mr. Josiah Hartley, thank you so much for being on the show again. How you doing?
Man, I'm excellent. I appreciate the invite back. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, of course. I'm not sure if you're aware, but the last time you were on, which was 2 years ago, that video is the most watched video of the whole episode, and we've had over 50 guests. So that was the number one video so far. So yeah, you brought a ton of value. I mean, everyone needs to check it out if they haven't. But you're only 10 months in, so I'm sure a lot has changed. I'm gonna be excited to catch up with you a little bit.
Well, I'm glad to hear that it must have helped some people. So that's why we do this. So excited to hear that. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I still have people talking about that video here and there, so really good stuff. And then we also got to hang out at the mega conference. Last year was it was a huge success, but what's the plans for this year?
So we're running Mega back. We're doing it still similar style. So for anyone who doesn't know, it's a little bit of an exclusive event for people that are considered mega agencies by what they sell or their premium size. And so we got about 43, 44 people together last year in Scottsdale. So similar location, going a little bit bigger with the venue, still a smaller, more intimate group of people. So running it back with just a few more amenities for the group that's going, but it was super fun to put on. And I think that we got a lot of value out of it. And it's exactly what I was hoping for. It's just a small group of really talented people getting in a room, sharing what they go through. I know you share some stuff that you've dealt with there, which is super helpful. And a lot of us just have the same problems. So it's a place to kind of air that out and hear from each other how to deal with them. So really had a good time and very excited to run it back this year.
Yeah, no, it was great. Thank you for inviting me. But yeah, you did a great job pulling it off. Congratulations.
Well, it
That
was
must
one
have
of
been not
those
that
things I was
easy.
like, this will either work really well or it's going to be an absolute disaster. And so, as is, I think, some of my general business plans I tend to put together. So I'm really happy that it worked out the way it did. I appreciate people like you supporting it.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for this year too. So it's been 2 years, and you were off to such a great start. When we first talked, you were just 10 months into your farmer's journey, and you already had, building business background with agencies with Allstate. So you got off to a hot start, and you were just off to a strong start. But tell me about the last 2 years. What's been like?
Well, we've kind of continued our model. So our model is to write a good amount of new business, but also to do acquisitions where we can. Um, that's been a journey in and of itself. When I started at Farmers, it was kind of like you really couldn't do internal acquisitions. Then it became anyone can do internal acquisitions. Then it became there's this set of rules. And then I think it was at Toppers one year, they rolled out a new set of rules. And I think we're moving over to Prime for scorecard rules. So that's been an adventure in and of itself. But we've been adding to the team, building on the team members. So we just brought on our fifth salesperson. So we have five sales, three on the customer service side, still have the split teams. They're doing a phenomenal job. Texas is a challenging market, not as challenging as California, but we have a lot of restrictions, places we can only write bundles. We can't write monoline policies in specific areas. But they're doing a fantastic job. They're doing between 400 to 425,000 a month between the five of them. So just doing amazing, super grateful. And we are in the process of completing our fifth acquisition right now. So it'll be the fifth book that we've bought since we started. So just kind of our model of grow, buy, grow, buy.
Wow, awesome. And you have some good news to share today, right? Congratulations, brother.
Well, we got the call that we hit PC, so we got that, which I know you did as well. So congratulations. You've been hitting PC a lot longer than I've been getting it. So congratulations to you as well.
Yeah, no, thank you. But yeah, same to you. I think this is the first year you're able to qualify.
Yeah, it was our first year able to qualify. We were able to do it. And the team was, that was really what it was about. It's kind of about branding that identity with them so that that's who they see themselves as. This is who the agency is. So it was important to me. We came out of the gate and hit it right away, and just give them that identity. So being able to go share it with them, hey, we thought we had it. Yes, we got it. This is why, because of the work that y'all are doing. This is who we are as a business, and really making that become their identity. So that was a really exciting thing today.
Yeah. So yeah, we're going to talk about, some of the things that we talked about: recruiting, marketing, automation. But some of the things you already mentioned is the fact that you bought five agencies already. So do you have multiple locations, or how are you kind of working that out with when you buy agencies?
I do have two locations, typically depending on the size and the situation of the seller. I like to merge it in. Now, that's also going to be a caveat with what farmers' rules are. So without getting overly specific here, there's times they allow things like dual codes. There's times they want what's called a child code. So they want you to have a separate business, a separate location. So we have to operate within the compliance and parameters what farmers wants. But my big thing on acquisitions is synergies. So I'm looking to, if I can acquire, especially if I can acquire and merge in, eliminate the overhead of operating that space, maybe merge in some employees depending on the situation. And the goal is to really have as little overhead from acquiring as possible. So we're probably only really dealing with debt servicing, paying the loan on it, and then we're using all of the cash flow we get from it to double down and reinvest in the growth. So if we are able to go purchase and we have a few $100,000 of cash flow coming in, for me, that is okay, we can hire two more salespeople with this. We can staff on an extra service person and cross sell here. So it's really acquiring cash flow in order to be able to reinvest heavier in order to be able to grow faster.
Nice. Yeah, I think it is better if they do let us merge, right? It's just for simplicity reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And with the location not being as important, maybe these days, having multiple locations. What are your thoughts on that? Is that something, would you like to have
I
a lot
know
of
some agents
locations?
really used to like it and they believed in footprint and points of sale and things of that model. That's a lot of the older lingo that we dealt with. For us, I'm in Houston. We sell all over the state. We're starting to sell other areas now. And so I kind of joke, it's no different for me to have one or two or four locations. If we're selling a policy to someone who lives in Lubbock and it's a 9 hour drive from my office, they're not coming in anyway. So if I have one location or four locations, it's not going to matter. And so the more we can keep that overhead low, I also love having the energy of the team. So the more we can keep them centralized and together, the energy, the camaraderie, the fun that comes with that. If you got four locations and three people in each, it's pretty low energy. You can put, I've seen how your team operates. You put them all in a giant space together. It's a little separated but open, and they're able to talk, and you have energy, and people are closing deals. It's so much fun, and that's contagious. So the more we can put them all together to enjoy working together, I think it's far more effective.
Yeah, I agree with you. We actually didn't talk about something surprisingly last time. We almost covered everything, I felt like. But what's your stance or outlook on a remote place?
I don't do remote really. I've tried it in the past, and I just feel like we operate so much better when we're in person as a team. Um, our people average about 75,000 a month in sales, and I haven't been able to replicate that on the remote side. But I also put a caveat on there. I live in Houston, so I'm in Houston, Texas. There's millions and millions of people here. I have friends that live in very remote places. I have a buddy who lives in, actually, Cole. I think it's Muskogee, Oklahoma. Great agent, not a huge population. And so he's opted to go for more of a remote strategy so he can recruit good talent from different places because there's a very finite pool that could get it in his actual where his office is located. So I think that I definitely prefer in person. I enjoy being able to be around my people all day that's working together. But depending on where the agency is located, you might have to have some caveats to that rule.
Wow, 75,000 average per agent. That's a big number, for average. It's like a top producer at any office to have that as an average. What is, how are you able to do that? Is there a lot of, are you pretty tough on them? If they're mediocre, they're not there. What's your thoughts on having that average per agent so high? How do you think you're able to do that?
It hasn't been easy. I will say that we hold very hard to our standards on how we hire and who we bring in. And so you kind of know my rule. I think I've talked about this. I'm looking for people who are experienced, preferably already have 3 years in the business. We want them already selling. We want them already good. We're talking about the move from good to great, not from average to potentially good. So I usually bring in people who are already the top sales where they are. And then we're giving them a lot of marketing opportunity, a ton of processes in place. And so our actual average on a 3 month mover is 76,244 is the actual number. It's the average on a 3 month mover per person. And so, yeah, I think that the quality of the individual we bring in, but as an example, I made a bad hire about 2 months ago. I had a young woman from State Farm come and apply. She had experience. So had her do all her binding. She's ready when she starts. She worked for us for 9 days, and in 9 days, she sold two policies. And on the ninth day, I terminated her, had a conversation, let her go. And a lot of people would say, man, that's not a lot of time. But my view is you were ready to go on day one. You've had nine, you've got two policies. So I'm having the conversation of if I really work with this person, maybe they'll be decent to good, but that's not who we are. That's not our standard. So I'd already started interviewing. We let her go. I had a gentleman come in to start. He'd been working for an independent for a while. And in his first 2 weeks, he did 54,000. Like that's what we're looking for. So we hold the standard very high for our people who produce and are good. They're long tenured with me. We take really good care of them. Someone has a bad month, they're not getting terminated. It's okay. They already have a track record. But we bring someone in, we're very serious around what we expect. And one of those is we expect someone on their first full month with us to do 50,000. So they're already going to be trained, have their binding, be ready to go. But in their first full month, they should do 50K. Now they might do 45, and that's fine. They got close. But if they come out and do two, that's not going to be something we're going to have a second month. We're going to go ahead and call it and move on to a different person.
Yeah, the effort it takes to get that person to the level you want to, it's just so much more work that you rather spend that work on just, because finding someone new is work too, but it's probably a better use of your energy to find a replacement rather than to try to get that person to a much higher level than they could get to. Wow,
And
that's
we've
awesome.
talked about this too, right? Like I always say, like I'm always recruiting, even when I'm not hiring. And so there's been times I haven't needed someone, but we come across someone super talented. So we just pull the trigger and figure it out financially how to pay for it. And so we're always looking so that we hopefully have a bank of people. And people will say, man, it's so hard to find someone like that. But then I ask, but how many hires do you really need to do a year? Most people aren't trying to hire 10 people a year. Most people are trying to hire one or two people a year. So if you need two people, that means every 6 months you got to find someone good. So you've got 6 months to locate one person who can be amazing in your business. And so if you start thinking about it that way, I can do that. But it's hard to do if you need to fill the spot tomorrow. But if you're always recruiting and you know you're going to add a salesperson this year, maybe even add two salespeople this year, and you give yourself that timeline because you're always looking, always interviewing, always recruiting, you can start to find some really good talent. But it's hard to do in a high pressure situation when you have to have someone now. That's when I've started to cut corners and make decisions I shouldn't.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I got from our conversation last time when you had the whole pipeline for recruiting and how you spent, hour every morning, and then you had templates too, like a sales stage on a sales, CRM. So I took a page out of your book, and that has made a huge difference. So, very similar situation happened to me, and I have people lined up already, and then I can still be a picky self in that situation when you really need somebody still.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of things. I'm sure a lot of people got great things out of our first conversation. But tell us where your agency's at now, 2 years later. Premium wise, anything you want to share as far as what has changed, what you've learned, some of the learning lessons or some of the highlights.
Sure. So we're closing our fifth. So full disclosure, that comes with three more people. So I told you we have five sales, three service. We're about to add another three. That'll put us just over 16 million in premium. So it's getting to be a decent size, operation that we're going through. So what we've done is growing pains. We've got growing pains, and so more and more I'm finding what I can and can't do, and having to be very particular around what hats I wear. Like the recruiting, I always really want to do that at this point. But there's certain things I've got to delegate and trust that they can get done. Trust but verify. So we're going through growing pains, like anyone does when they start to expand. We're figuring out very quickly where a lack of organization can hurt us. We've been always so good at processes on the sales side. Now we're having to get very good at processes on the service side. So everyone's not just running different directions. So pain points there where tensions dropped, having to put extra focus on it, build that back up, and really sit down with managers and say, what do we need to do to improve these things? So it's pointed out where we're weak. It's forced us to put attention there. And then also really a focus on being more well-rounded. Farmers has shown us that they're not okay with us just doing home and auto. That's how our comp is starting to show, our VRC prime that's coming. So putting processes in place to get better at the commercial life and become more well-rounded.
Yeah. Um, tell me a little bit of how your team is structured as far as leadership, like managers and stuff like that.
So we have sales and service, so two teams split. My sales manager is really kind of my right hand, so he does still sell policies, and he runs a sales team. Then we have a service team and a service lead, and they kind of answer to him as well. And so it's nothing crazy or super deep structured, but we hold people accountable for very specific roles. And so on the service side, we may have someone who does service and handles a lot of our commercial accords. In Texas, we have something called TWIA, Texas Windstorm. It's coastal stuff. So they may do service and handle all the TWIA. On sales, I have two people that do personal lines and they handle our small commercial new business. And so we have some management in place, and then we have some people that are accountable to a specific role in addition to just their general job in the agency.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's a great idea to just have everybody know their roles and have their strengths and be able for them to focus on it instead of everybody just doing, everything.
We started to realize that whenever we were behind in life and commercial, and it's kind of like, can someone write a policy? And then like no one does, and you're not really sure who to hold accountable because everyone sort of is, so no one is actually. But then it's when it's okay, Michael and Alondra, you're going to do two commercial apps a month. Bailey and Logan, you need to write two life apps each a month. Well, then if we're not there, it's very easy to have those conversations, or if they are, it's very easy to see and reward that behavior. So everyone has their job, but getting very clear, very linear on what the responsibilities are and who is responsible for them. And the same thing for me, I have responsibilities. So if I have a goal of doing an acquisition a year or being at a certain premium target, I'm supposed to help with that. Like the team knows my goal for myself, and I'm held accountable to that. So everyone has a role to play.
Yep. Yeah, 16 million in 2.5 years, right? Or
Two and
less
a
than
half,
three
yeah,
years. Yeah,
two and a
that's
half years.
amazing. Well, but you know what? I
We've
already
been
knew.
busy, we've been busy. I haven't slept a whole lot.
Well, I already knew that you're gonna do big things when we first talked, just because of your knowledge base. So it's impressive, but not surprising actually. So would you say your main roles are right now from 2 years ago? Has it changed or is it pretty much the same, recruiting and marketing?
The goals are the same, and I'm really honestly excited about the leadership that we have. I know you've talked to Ken Walton and spent time, our president of distribution, and you've spent time with them. They really have a great vision, I feel, for us at where we're at. It's almost an adjusted captive, so we're captive farmers agents, but they've given us optionality. I know you have some options in Craft Lake and things in California. Texas has some optionality. It's allowed us to become much more broad, capturing a different client base. They're talking about large agencies. I know Ken was saying they want the average to be 6 million, their big ones to be 100 million. So I think the vision's there. So I think that aligns for someone like us, where we're trying to push between growth and scale. So that's really exciting. But also a big focus of ours right now, a lot of conversations in the agency is making sure we have the infrastructure in place. So as we continue to grow, that we can continue to have the quality that we need to. So we're not going to stop growing in personal lines. We're not going to fall short on life and commercial. Our retention's not going to suffer. So making sure we have the infrastructure to be able to handle each next level that we go to.
Right. So when it comes to customer service, is there any kind of cool like automation or anything that has helped you as far as keeping things organized? Because when you said you weren't organized, that really surprised me because you're so process driven. But anything that you discovered while you were growing that could be cool to share?
It was a weakness for me. I really didn't put as much time and attention as I should into it. And I think part of that was the rate environment. My career hasn't been that long. So for a long time, rates were good. Everyone retained like 89% of their business. So, you lost 10 or 11% a year. And that's just how it was. Service came in, they did their job. Well, you go through the rate environments that all these carriers have gone through. And it's like, holy crap, if we don't do something, we're going to lose a third of our business this year. And that made us sit up and pay attention. So we do. We use Apex, of course, but we use Google Sheets a lot. And so I'll give an example. We've had some non-renewals in Texas, and so we took our non-renewals and put them on a Google Sheet. We split them by month and we split them by agent in the office. So a third, a third, a third. Color coded. So as they work them, and one of our requirements was you're going to go through and you're actually going to re-quote these in Craft Lake. You're going to quote all their options in every carrier we have. We're to make a proactive phone call. So when we call, we can say, hey, you're going to get this notice, but don't worry, I've already quoted you through 4 other carriers. Here's your best option. We can get this set up today. So getting ahead of the issue, having processes, okay, here's the assigned Google Sheet, go to your list. Here's my 9 this month. This is who they are. I have a column for every carrier. I know the prices for every carrier for your quote. Now we're gonna make the proactive phone call. So getting management and the processes set up on things like that versus we were getting irate calls. Someone would call, I got a notice I'm getting canceled. What is going on? We have no idea. They get mad, they leave. We haven't had to quote them yet. So really kind of getting in front of the problem. We do automation. I use Ricochet. We use text drips. We use email drips to stay in touch with the customer. But a lot of it was the structure of having good processes, saying what are our 3 or 4 most critical things. The critical alerts are non-renewals. We need dedicated processes. We need everyone to know what they need to do every day. What's their assignment for the month, even on the service side. So the service side really has the goals too. If you've got your 9 non-renewals, this is your goal for the month to move these. If you've got these alerts, this is your goal. So now everyone has a target to achieve.
Nice. Yeah, well, I do know a little bit about that non-renewal process, so sounds like very similar to the system we have here.
Yeah, see, I heard from you about some of the things that you dealt with, and so I think that that was actually super useful for me, kind of on the mega conference thing, because I think being around, not that I wish you ill, but you had it much worse than we had it. And I think even seeing that is a good reminder for us that it could be worse, it could be harder. And look, if this person got through it, then we know we can too. And so walk me through how you talk to your team. Explain to me how you kept moving forward with the process. And then I get to tell them, look all the problems Dan's got. We don't have those problems. And that's very motivating.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I can brag about my problems all the time. Uh, yeah, awesome. So yeah, what about your role specifically? Do you still do the same things, like calling the lead vendors, or doing the recruiting yourself? Has your role changed?
My roles have evolved a little bit. I think that the team has really come to terms with our service lead, our sales manager, really going to them for 99% of the things. So a lot of my conversations with the team are personal, life, family. And so we really moved every bit of like the work aspect with the team onto them unless there's a crucial issue. I've delegated a few things related to marketing. I've delegated some things related to accounting. And so I do still handle like the lead vendor side. I do work with farmers, and then a lot of my energy really has been around what I would call M&A, mergers and acquisitions. I try to look at it in the lens of what are the things that only I can do, and when I do them, it moves the agency forward. So there's a lot of things that other people can do, but the way we spend some of the money really needs to be my responsibility. If we're going to go expand and buy an agency, really only I can do that. And so as we grow, I'm trying to get narrower and narrower in my scope of what are the things that only I can do. And if it doesn't fall in that bucket, I really should be delegating that to someone who's able to do it. And typically, we've been fortunate when I do that. They're so well suited for it. They're probably going to do a much better job with it than I was because it wasn't my strong suit in the first place. So giving them the chance to do it and do it better than I could.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, what are the things only I can do? I think that's a great takeaway. And every agency owner should be thinking that way. So when it comes to buying agency, which I know you love to do, you know, um, how do you process the math there? And what are some experiences you had as far as the good and the bad, from doing all these acquisitions? Sometimes when I think like if I had a certain amount of capital, would I just spend that in just buying leads and hiring producers and having bonuses and growing it organically versus buying a book that you may not know what the culture was there like, what type of sometimes you have to train the customers how to interact with you and stuff like that. So there's some and obviously some, retention issues from when you purchase a book of business too. What do you love so much about the buying the book of business and how has it helped you? Let's just start there.
Sure. So to your point, I think the hardest thing is the culture, right? We've worked so hard with the culture. A lot of times when we buy a book of business, it's someone who may be retiring. I do target specific books, so I'm looking for older, tenured books that have been in place for a long time, solid clientele. And so what you're going to run into is staff that's used to working for an older agent who's been there for a long time, very tenured. So sometimes our culture is a little bit of a shock to them, and we just see if they can adjust to that. So the culture by far is the most challenging part, and how you reconcile that. And so we try to give them the warm and fuzzies, and then bring them in and give them a chance to adapt to us. But that's definitely the most challenging part. What I like about acquisitions is the speed. And so, yes, you can write the policies and grow it, and you can get there. Whenever you're buying a book of business, you're taking on debt, you're taking on a risk, you're going to have some retention come off because of a transition. All of that is very true. But it's the speed. And so when I look at pretend retentions, 80% when you write policies, how much do I have to write to get to 5 million month after month, year after year at a net 80%? How long does that take me? Or I can go buy it and close in 60 days. And so how fast can I get a hold of the cash flow coming off of a $5 million book and then go and deploy that? And so for me, the acquisition game is a speed game. It's speed to scale. We're able to go quickly. Again, I haven't done the math exactly. We're over 16 million. I've been here 2.5 years. I have to run the math. How much would I need to write at our retention rate to get there? It would be a pretty large number, where I've been able to go acquire those chunks. And each time we go acquire a chunk, I can add a couple more people, add a few more salespeople, and continue to keep growing. So it's a speed to scale game to get the premium under management quickly, to have those funds to be able to deploy them to grow faster.
Good stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Growing organically, 60 million in less than 3 years. Yeah, that will take you longer than that for sure. How much would you estimate your book is from acquisitions versus organic?
That's a great question, Dan. It's right at 50-50, and it could be, I think it's a close to 9 is about acquisitions at this point. I think about 9 is acquisitions. We should put around 7 being from organic growth.
Nice. Yeah, that's still a lot of policies that you wrote.
It's a lot of policies. Like I said, we typically write north of 400 a month, 400,000 a month. So it's a lot of policies we're writing. The team's amazing, but that's part of the farmer's deal. If we're not growing, and if we're not growing substantially, then they're not going to allow us to acquire. So when we buy a book of business, we have to demonstrate that we can grow it, and not just grow it, but grow it better than the previous agent or anyone else who may have had an opportunity. So we have to come out and really prove that we're doing good with the market share they've allowed us to have or allowed us to manage. I kind of have started telling people internally, I almost look at, you've heard of assets under management. I almost look at this as premium under management. You know, we own the commission rights, but they own the customers. And so if they're saying, yes, you can go take on another 2,000 customers, what are we doing as an ROI to the company for us to have that premium under management? And so we have to get them a good return. So we have to show them why we're so good and why they made the right choice in approving this, so that I can continue to go. If I can't do that, then I'm not able to continue with the plan. So I have to grow it, and I have to grow it substantially.
Do you do that through buying leads, or do you try to also do that significantly through cross-selling that book of business?
We used to be almost exclusively leads. Now we're, because of our size, we are doing more cross-selling. So we're still buying leads, we're still generating there. We've gotten much more serious around cross-selling, how we have processes there, what service does when they see someone who has a monoline policy, and referring it to the sales team live on the call with a live transfer process. Because it's a lot of gold that we should be mining. And as we've gotten larger, it's become more and more part of our business.
I'm just kind of blown away how little service staff you have that manages that much premium. I mean,
Our average service person takes between 40 and 50 inbound calls a day. That's what they take. And we're trained on kind of, if it's a billing thing, how we handle that and what the process should be versus, again, they're not going to quote a policy. So if it's monoline, they're going to refer and flip over to the sales team immediately. And so this is going to sound funny. A lot of people love really long conversations, and that's a good model for some people. For us, it's still a speed thing. If it's, you want an ID card, get it to you right over, confirm your email, hang up the call, go ahead and send an ID card. But if we don't have their home, we'll get you the ID card, transfer them to the sales team, let them quote the home while we're working the ID card. So we're very methodical around the processes, but we run it lean, and as a result, because they are so busy, we need really talented people who really care about the mission of the agency, and then we have to compensate them very well for it and make sure that they feel like the value they're getting from being a part of the organization is worth. But I think back to the branding of PC, it all kind of goes hand in hand. When people are proud of where they work and they feel like they're better than a lot of other agencies, then shifts from, oh my God, my boss had 48 people call me today. It goes to, yeah, I can handle 48 people in a day. And it's like a pride factor of how efficient they are and how good they are at what they do.
Yeah, it's like you have a team full of superstars, like superstars only sign in your office.
Honestly, it is. I may have told this story in the last podcast, so I apologize if I did, but I had a producer one time and they were not meeting the requirement on sales. And it was like the next month they weren't there, it wasn't going to work out after separation. And a different producer came in. She came and talked to me and she goes, why is this person still working here? I was like, what do you mean? She goes, they're not good enough to work with us. And I was almost like mildly offended in the moment. So I'm like, why are you telling me this? That's not your job. But in retrospect, I love that because the culture is such that teammates will look around and say, you're not good enough to work here. Like they almost enforce the culture for me. They're like, all of us are doing this. This person's here. Hey, are you seeing this? They don't fit in. They're not good enough to work with us. Kind of that sharp mentality. But I like that because they're actually enforcing the culture for us and holding our values.
Yeah, it's like a sports team. Like everybody wants to win, so we got to have good teammates to do that. So a weak teammate gets kind of gets in a way gets called out. So that is a great culture to have. I think I put up with a lot of well, hopefully no one on my team's listen to this, but that might be too nice about my office. Um, but yeah. Um, what about, when you go into debt and then you like you mentioned, the cash flow is what you're purchasing. This could be a beginner question for, people who are looking to buy books, but is there a certain timeline you kind of like to have, your money back? Or is that not the way to look at it? Or how do you look at calculating the investment that you make when you're purchasing a book of business?
So, first note, I have a series 663, so this is not financial advice. Let's just get that out of the way right now. It's not. But there's two ways to look at it. I think one of them just depends on how fast you're growing. So for me, I do not worry about paying things down quickly. I typically structure a 10-year loan. And my thought process is the way we write business, we are going to outpace, we are going to grow value faster than the debt or the interest I'm paying on the debt. Now, you can negotiate deals where you have no prepayment penalties, meaning you can pay it down early with chunks of money or bonuses and get that out from under you. If you have a very high interest rate, that would probably be something smart to do. But my belief has always been that we can grow so quickly that we are so far outpacing the interest in the debt that I want to funnel as much money into growth. I've always said if I could stretch it to 15 or 20 years, I would. The less I can make the payment and the more I can focus on growth. Because if you give me $50,000 and say, do you want to pay towards your loan and interest, or do you want to invest 50,000 into growing? I know how fast we can scale and how much value we can increase the agency by. So that's always been my focus. Again, if I had a 10% interest rate, servicing big loans, I may say, hey, you need to pay this down, be responsible, get that off the books as fast as possible. But the environment that we've been in, the multiples that we're buying for, the interest rate environment, how we've been able to finance deals, I pay whatever is required. I invest every available dollar into growing, into increasing the value of the agency, knowing that by the time that note is finished being paid off, the value that we'll have created will be so much dramatically more than what I've paid for the privilege of being able to buy that book of business.
Yeah, okay, great. Thanks for breaking that down. Shout out to Wintrust, by the way.
Shout out to Wintrust for giving me the money.
Yeah, we should give a shout out for that.
Because you know them, they've gone along with all my business plans and they've been fantastic to work with. But I think that to anyone listening, that's an important note is if you're going to do this, Insurance is an intangible. A lot of banks do not want to lend on that. So there are specific banks that will lend in the insurance space and will even kind of guide and advise you on, hey, this is what we see in your area. These are the multiples. This is the values of the businesses that you're buying. Here's the proposed structure. I'm gonna kind of partner with you on that. So just make sure if you are doing deals like that, you're really doing your due diligence because you can get in trouble. There's been people I've seen that have done personal guarantees and collateralize their homes in order to do deals, and they shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing standard commercial loans where you're protected by your LLC and you're treating this like a business. So just good word of advice.
Absolutely. That totally makes sense. Oh yeah, and that's a great way of looking at it, you know. It's like a race to see how you could grow things faster and rather than trying to pay it off, you can use that money to grow it faster.
I've seen people do both. Some people aren't comfortable with debt or they don't believe in it for specific reasons. They want to pay it down. They've been very successful. Again, my thought has always been pay the minimum amount really towards it, service the debt the way you need to, pay it down the preferred schedule. But we're confident in our ability to grow. I want to reinvest in the growth, especially when it has opportunities like, okay, because we grew X amount, now we can go buy this $4 million book. And so now I grew to and bought for, now I'm 6 million bigger. Yes, it took a loan on the four, but we've increased by $6 million in premium. That's a lot of value to add to the book of business. And then multiples. This is chaotic around here. I mean, I'm in Texas, you're in California. Um, Values aren't super high in insurance agencies right now in the captive market. When I got into Allstate back in 2017, they're about the peak. I paid a 3.2 multiple, meaning I paid 3.2 times on the revenue. That was 3 to 3.5 was normal. I'm paying 1.5, 1.6 here in Texas for books now. So I'm paying less than half of what I paid for the first book when I got in business. So the way I'm looking at it is things are basically 50% on sale compared to where I used to be. So I think it's a fantastic time to take advantage of kind of the chaos and the uncertainty to have a clear vision that you're moving forward. And once you're committed to that, to go all in on it.
Yeah. That's some cool stuff. Like your certainty is so, you're so sure about your operation, and how confident you are of being able to grow a book of business because you're so right. There's so much uncertainty. And I don't think optimism is a lot of insurance agents are feeling that way. So it's almost like taking advantage of the situation that we're in just because of your skills and you know how to run an agency
And
is
it's a,
making it a
I
good
think you're right.
investment.
It's a decision. The certainty is a decision, right? Like we see the risks. Again, we dealt with non-renewals. That was unknown to me before it happened. It wasn't expected. It wasn't appreciated. That's the hand we were dealt. We have to deal with it. But it's the decision. I'm committed to be here. This is the focus. We're sticking to the vision. We're going to take some punches on the way. Granted, when they come, okay, there's one of them. But we're still going from A to B. So how do we get from A to B as fast and efficiently as possible? And regardless of what happens, regardless of the noise, but it's a decision. That's what you're going to do.
Yeah, it's a decision to be certain.
That's right.
I love it. Good stuff. Wow. So how much is contract value anyways? Isn't it like 1.5 anyways, or is it even less than that?
It's like typically 1 to 1.5, but it takes years to vest. And I've seen a lot of variations on that. I have not seen any real impressive contract values, but I think it's between 1 and 1.5 times. But there's a lot of policy series that do and don't count towards that. And then the Craft Lake portion doesn't have contract value. And so we buy books we are paying on revenue from from Craft Lake as well. So we try to structure a deal where the agency owner, it makes sense for them to go with us. And also back to focusing on growing and being well-rounded. Um, Not everyone qualifies to buy a book of business. So a lot of times they're going to look at an outside buyer or there's a very select buyer pool. So if you're buying in your district, there might only be one or two people who are even qualified buyers. So God bless a monopoly. If you're the only one who can buy, so putting yourself in a position where you have the ability to, and the company's approved you based on whatever guidelines or where you're at, that matters because even if you want to take advantage of the opportunity, you may not be able to if you aren't doing your life, your commercial, all the things that you need to do to be a qualified buyer.
Yeah, and then the experience of you showing company that, hey, when I do purchase a book of business, I do take care of them, that premium under management does grow. I think that experience gives the company confidence too to let you purchase even more. So I think you're setting yourself up for something of
That's something that we do. That's a great point. And that is when we do make a approach to the company, or I go to my DM or ASM, we typically do, we'll take our last acquisition and say, hey, here's the rolling 12-month mover. Here's the statement of operations. So here's the premium, here's the policies, and show them this is what they were doing the year before we bought. This is what's happened after we've bought. Look at the policy growth, look at the premium growth. And that's part of our pitch to be able to go look at another opportunity is look at how much we've done with what you've given us, with what you've allowed. And kind of drawing that example to say, we take this seriously. I'm not here to buy a new car. I'm here to grow the market share. I'll eat the renewals later. That's mine. I'm building that for the business. But right now it's about growing your market share.
nice. And how did the rate increase affect your projections, like your projections? Like did that help it or did, because obviously
It
your
helped it
premium's
at
grown.
first, but then it went so far that it became unhelpful. And
Mhm.
so our retention suffered. And so I went in 2023, I I went backwards on policies and recovered by December, but I was actually negative in policy count for most of the year. And we barely made it back to positive on policy count, but we grew a significant amount on premium. But the rate increases were challenging. We had Foremost Signature, which came in, then was no longer in. And so we lost that. So the rate increases when they started were fine, but they became so significant that it became a real challenge for us. But again, it just pointed out some, I think, glaring weaknesses for us that we were so process oriented and so focused on sales. And we didn't have all the appropriate moats and barriers in place on the service side. And it made us really start paying attention to that. We put a process in place where we require a deck page to do a cancellation. We explain to the customer, we want to compare the coverages, make sure the dates match up. And the staff was a little uncomfortable with that. They're going to get mad at me. It's a non-negotiable. And so they require a deck page. And we've said, hey, you're going to this company, just so you know, it is a little bit cheaper, but it's name peril or we're open peril, just so you know, here's the differences. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. And they end up staying with us. So processes like that we didn't have in place that we really should have, going through that experience forced us to tighten up a lot.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the good thing about going through these experiences. I feel like I've had so many of those last years where just having because a new problem creates a new process, not a new solution, but a new system. Once you have a new system, then that's in there, you know, for as long as you need to adjust it again, but at least it's going to be pretty solid for a good amount of time until you actually keep making improvements to it. And I think that's what gives you the confidence, like, okay, if this comes up, I have this in place, this comes up, this comes in place. So that's where experience really helps. And that's why you're even more certain that, hey, I'm ready to grow now.
That's right.
When it comes to book of business, when it comes to purchasing, would you say just the bigger the better? Are
No, I
you
would
looking
say
to like buy like the biggest book you can all at all times?
I think that
Or
when you look at what you're writing and say, okay, if it's so small that I'm going to write this much in 2 months or 3 months, it's probably not worth going through the hassle because by the time you close, you'll already be that size. So that's something to consider. You write a ton of business. If you were to go buy something right now, I'd say it needs to be pretty sizable to be worth the effort and the complexity you're going to go through because you're writing so much, you're growing so quick organically. But I think that quality over everything. Howard Marks is an investor with Oaktree, and one of his quotes I love is he says, "It's not just about buying good things, but it's about buying things well." And I think that's not a grammatical difference; that's an actual key difference. So it's buying good things, but buying them well. And so it's buying quality businesses, but the pricing's where it needs to be, the structure and the deal is how it needs to be. It's both. And so I think I'd mentioned I look at older tenured books, usually someone who's going to want to retire. I actually prefer if they don't have a big team writing a ton of business. I prefer if they're more on the servicing side because probably really stable customers. They've had a lot of attention. It's not newer, volatile business. That's really what I want to go after. The $1 million book that's 2 years old, I'm probably going to stay with it, even if it's cheap, because I am measured by the company on how we grow it. So if the retention's awful on it and I bring it in and it starts hemorrhaging policies and premium, the company's going to say, well, look, you went backwards with this. Why do we entrust you with this? Even if I got it for cheap. So the pricing matters, buying it well matters, but buying something good also matters. So it's still a focus on quality.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That totally makes sense. Mature book of business that's been serviced, that probably aren't going to be switching because they've had their policy there for a while. That helps. Have you ever had a situation where the acquisition helped you gain talent, like you retain staff, or is it always a situation where you like to have your people?
I have retained talent, yes. I haven't necessarily brought in someone who was like a manager or who the sellers stayed on with me. I know some people have bought a book and the seller stayed on with them. I haven't done that. We've definitely retained talent, especially on the customer service side. Some people who have been there for a few years and they're very talented. They know the customers well, and they were able to adjust to our culture and they're a good fit. Absolutely, that can work really well. But I haven't done a situation where the manager or the seller stayed on under me. We haven't had that happen.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah. Well, I didn't know we are gonna get a full course on how to buy agencies, but I kind of started grilling you on this kind of stuff because this is important stuff to know, and I think it is a great way, something that I don't have experience in, but something I should learn and look into opportunities. But back to the organic side, anything new when it comes to the sales training? Do you still do that? You still have your sales manager do that every single morning?
We are still doing the training every morning. They still go through all of that. Again, we kind of have about the criteria of what it takes to work here. The marketing, we've had to be light on our feet. So some of the stuff with Texas, we had 12-month auto, then 6-month auto, and then we had the new home product come out. We've been very home heavy for a long time now. Homes have shifted anywhere around Dallas, Fort Worth, and the Houston greater area. We have to write the auto policy first, then call farmers. They have to cross index and validate it. Then we can go back and bind the home. There's no monoline policies allowed in these areas. So we're having to make a shift there. So when it comes to marketing, are we marketing these areas? What product are we leading with? Do we have to think outside the box on certain things? So more than ever, it's important to have staff training in place because we're throwing a lot of curveballs at them. We tell them one thing, that's the situation for 3 months. Hey, we have to pivot and just over here. So having those standing meetings in place, we'll have conversations of it's got to be done this way. We can only bundle here now. So we need to start talking about how do we pitch this? Do we do one price and the other? Do we present it as a package? What is the optionality there? So training has become more important than ever, not just for role play and handling objections, but keeping them apprised of what the changes are and helping them feel confident from the messaging top down that this is going to be fine. We're going to move marketing. We're going to help you with the training and keeping them confident they can continue to achieve their numbers.
Yeah, that's so true for us too. Like it
So
used to
I
be
know
just
you've had
like,
to deal with this.
yeah, every single week it's like something new. So in the past it would be just okay, we'll have to meet just to like overcome objections, or sometimes it would get repetitive information, but now we really have to meet. It's like, how do we write business now? Because everything was changing so fluidly.
Right, right. I think in Texas it was like they preferred that we didn't write monoline in certain areas. And then it was one Monday we came into work and it was like, huh, everything's just blocked. So it's like, all right, quick huddle. Let's figure it. So um, farmers is doing what they have to do. Totally understand it. They need to be profitable. We support that vision. It helps us in the long term. We just have to be able to understand how to deal with it and adapt, get through with a little bit of uncomfortable in the meantime. But I think being able to be transparent with your staff, but in a positive way, deciding to have that certainty even for them, that matters. So yes, we're still meeting, we're still training regularly, but it's not just about objections and quoting. Now, a lot of it's about how do we deal with what we're going through and how are we going to be successful through it.
Yep. Yeah. And what are some things you've done for yourself? Has it been challenging to a point where, it's been draining, or are you finding ways to stay positive, or anything that has helped you with, all the adjustments and the changes that we've kind of gone through?
I started out when we were going through some of the really tough stuff by calling some tenured agents and saying, I'm sure you've been through this before. But then they would say things like, no, not really. This is the first. I'm like, well, this is not encouraging at all. So I stopped that as a process. But I think history's helped me. I think, if you look at some of the things that have been dealt with in the general business market. I draw a parallel to the insurance business in general, not just farmers, but just kind of the crisis of the past 2 to 3 years. Very similar to the housing crisis in '08, when you look at kind of just the chaos and the bloodbath and the loss ratios and the combined ratios people are dealing with. But something we joke about, I'm 33, what we joke about is I should have been buying houses in '09 when they were so cheap. We were busy being in school. And I've drawn that parallel to now in the insurance business. So people are saying, gosh, it's so hard. There's so much chaos. There's so much uncertainty. It's so challenging. All true. Same situation 08, '09. But what some investors were doing was when prices dropped like crazy, they were deploying capital. They were buying up houses. They were buying up multifamily. They were investing heavily at crazy low prices. Then they rode it from there. And I'm kind of looking at it the same. I mentioned I was paying 3.2 times for a book in 2017. I'm getting books for 1.5 right now, 50% off. So I'm trying to keep the perspective of, yes, it's hard, but this hard is creating extremely unique opportunities that I may not see again, even the rest of my career. So I need to be grateful for it, deal with the problems that I'm facing because they're real. But there's a major silver lining in that it's allowing me to recruit great talent because they're leaving other places. It's allowing us to take a lot of market share because people are leaving. It's allowing us to buy books at a much lower multiple than they used to be. So we're getting better cash flow, and just starting to focus around the positive on that.
Wow, good stuff, man. Really good stuff. I love how you look at, the opportunities when there's an obstacle. And that's what I learned last year too. But really well said, brother. I think when they say when everyone's fearful, that's when you get greedy. And when everyone else is greedy, that's when you become
You may
fearful.
have heard the quote. It says, when there's blood in the street, it's time to buy. But the actual whole quote is, when there's blood in the street, it's time to buy, even when the blood is your own. That's the actual whole quote. People leave it off. And I think that's very true. It's like, well, we might have had this chunk of non-renewals, but we're still going to go buy 2 more books of business and scale this thing as fast as possible. Take your punch and keep moving.
Yeah, just make sure you don't die. I think you don't die.
Just make sure you don't die. That's where your certainty comes in. I mean, look
Yeah.
at you. You've been pretty transparent. You've been through a lot. And you've brought it back. You've restaffed. You're writing a ton of new business again. You've survived and you're starting to thrive now. And I bet you are 10 times the agent that you were 3 years ago.
Yeah, well, again, building those systems in place, when this happens, I gotta have this in place. So I think that was one of the best things that happened. And also, like you mentioned, talent, great skilled producers are actually looking for jobs. I mean, that never happens. Like maybe someone like that would look for a job once, like in 10 years. They don't switch jobs when you're a good producer. And they're actually in the market looking for jobs too. So it does hurt to make these investments because looking back at my history, I would kill to have a producer of that caliber with that experience, but they just aren't in the market. So when they come along, even though your financial situation isn't that great, you just bite the bullet and know that, hey, I'm gonna, you know, take advantage of this opportunity because you know how rare it is. And then everything we do is for the future.
The way you put it, everything we do is for the future. I joke, and I think people maybe take this the wrong way sometimes, but I'll always say I'm long-term greedy. And so it's like when we write policies, we maybe break even when we bind a policy, but I'm getting the renewals down the road. We buy a business, yes, we're taking on some debt. We have cash flow and scale to grow. So you're doing it for the end result. We're long-term greedy. We're building something that's going to continue to pay us. But I think you're comfortable handling that short-term pain, that initial investment, which is why your investment has continued to grow the way it has. Where a lot of agents get stuck, they can't see, if I do this, how does it make me more money today? Well, the short answer is a lot of time it doesn't make you more money today. You're playing the long game.
Yeah, and I think when you have experience that you've seen it paying off, it starts becoming you get a little bit more comfortable making those investments.
Mhm.
Because it's not like you're jumping, with blind faith. The good behaviors, what it results to. What what was how were you able to, and I know you're very aggressive too, talking to you personally as far as investment and making the short term, the investments that you make. You know, do you sometimes feel like you want to splurge on yourself, like, or how do you stay so disciplined as when it comes to like, making those type of like investments and really just pushing it as maxing it out, you delay gratification.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I will say I've gone through periods. Even at Allstate, we pushed it a lot, so we had to be very lean in the beginning. We ended up making really good money as it went. Um, and I got carried away. I mean, I started buying crap that I don't need. I bought some cars that were silly. None of it did a lot for me, realistically. And I've just kind of started to realize I do like a certain standard of living. We want to make sure we're taking care of our families and everything. Um, but that's not my main driver. My main driver is I love building. I get no bigger thrill than a win, if that's closing a deal or having a fantastic month, or getting to bring in a producer and give them an extra incentive or an extra bonus to say, hey, like you killed it, like you're amazing, and seeing how that can change them or improve their life. We brought people in that um, doing well in sales, but really tough situations in life. And 2 years later, they own a home and a new car, and like be able to give people that opportunity. So I think that a lot of it is for me is in the process. I love what I do. I wake up every day. I am thrilled when it's Monday. I have the best time going to work. So I don't know if it's so much discipline as in the money comes and it builds and it'll come more later. But every day I go to work, I'm having an absolute blast. I think as long as I'm doing that, I'm good.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It's like you're not really feel like it's a sacrifice because you're just enjoying the process anyways. So it's not really a sacrifice if you're enjoying the journey, because the moment you're happy and you're also building for something and you're excited for the future too. So it doesn't get that difficult. You're not like it's not like a punishment. It's not a sacrifice. It's an investment that you're making that you're happy to make, and you're enjoying that every day. You have a good lifestyle. Families taken care of. People depend on you. So yeah, I totally resonate with what you just said there.
Well, it's like you have goals, maybe someone's goal is 5 million or it's 10 million. And that's a good goal. But I think what you realize when you get there, you're like, okay,
Keep
that's
doing
that's
it.
that's I don't
It
feel any
works.
different. I don't feel any different. And so I'm a huge fan of setting big, audacious goals, crazy, scary goals, goals that when you tell people, they kind of go, okay. Because that's what's fun to work for. That's what's fun to chase. That's what's fun to go after. And it gives you this giant vision to rally the team behind. That's what makes going to work fun.
A lot more fun. Share with us a little bit about your big goals.
Well, I have it on my wall. Our big goal is 100 million in premium. So it's been done 2 times that I'm aware of in the captive side. A gentleman named Ted Todd did it at Allstate. He's out of Florida and I believe Georgia now. He cleared 100 million. And then Richard Barhorst, who was with Nationwide before he left and went independent, he cleared 100 million. So it's been done twice in the captive world where someone's pulled it off. And so I've shared it with the team. It's on our board out there. It's on the board of my office. Every chunk we go, I take 1 million off the target, working our way down. It's a big, crazy goal. I wouldn't even know how to run it at this moment. We don't have the infrastructure to run something that size this moment, but we're not there yet. We're going to build and learn as we go. But we have that, and the team is working towards it, and they're unified behind the vision, and it gives them this crazy goal to work towards. And so we go to work every day.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's so important to have that big goal because then they feel like they fit into that goal. The goal is big enough where they could make a huge contribution and they'll be rewarded within that big goal. I think that if the agency's goal is too small, then some of the producers within it could outgrow that goal and then want to do their own thing. So I
That
think it's
is
great
so
that
big.
mhm.
That is such a big thing. We talk about that. I love that you talked about that because I have told people my job is one to recruit super talented people. But if I'm going to do that, they need to be able to grow. So I have to grow the agency at such a rate that I am creating opportunity and jobs inside the agency. Because someone who's crazy talented isn't going to stay a salesperson forever, not going to stay a service person answering billing calls forever. They need to grow. So to give them an opportunity, I have to scale at such a clip that I need those positions to be filled and I can move them into those positions. Otherwise, it's a glass ceiling. They're going to do it for a couple of years. They're going to go somewhere else, somewhere bigger, somewhere better. So if I want to retain my talent, I actually have a responsibility to grow it quick enough and to scale it large enough that they can grow inside of the organization and stay with me. If they leave me because there's a bigger, better opportunity, then I'm not doing my job well. So I have a responsibility to grow quick.
Yep. That's why the vision is so important. I think I almost look at it as our biggest job is to paint that vision, tell it to them repeatedly, and see how they could fit within that vision if it's big enough. And I saw something, I think it was a Facebook post, I don't know why it just reminded me of it, where someone went to one of your speeches or your talks, I think you flew somewhere, and they said what they got out of what you said was A players don't work for B owners, something along those lines.
Yeah, I've said that a few times. People, A players don't work for B owners. So we were talking about scaling our own personal skills up. So whether it's scaling your business or how you manage people and lead. And it can sound harsh when I say this to people, but I'll talk to agents sometimes. Well, I interviewed these guys and they're really good, but I couldn't get them to work for me. I'm like, well, what are you doing to be the best opportunity that they have? I'm like, well, I'm going to pay them. I'm like, well, that may not be enough if they're super talented. Like, if your end goal is you're 1.5 million in premium and you want to one day be 2 million in premium, you're probably not going to get the 75K A player. They need to go somewhere. They see amazing opportunity, a huge vision painted, a landscape for them to grow in. A players don't work for B owners. So if you're having a hard time hiring great people, I think we have to look at ourselves. When I was at Allstate, not all my team was who they should have been. And part of that was because I did not have the skill sets. I did not have the ability or the confidence to go out and recruit that level of player. We've gotten better. I know I still have room for improvement, especially as we scale bigger. I mean, some really sophisticated management. I'm going to have to get better at a lot of things so that those type of people are willing to come work for me. So I have my own work cut out for me.
There you go. Well, you're definitely an A owner, Josiah, my friend. This one's gonna get another thousands and thousands of views. That's why I wanted you on the show so you could grow my channel single-handedly. But it's always fun talking with you, hanging with you. Mega conference, is that gonna be around the same time of the year?
Yes, and actually, we're putting a release out on Thursday about it. So we'll have a save the date go out Thursday to everybody who attended and some people that you may recommend to join. So you'll get that on Thursday.
All right, great. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you there too. But yeah, for now, let's keep in touch. 2 years flew by. I knew you're gonna be a superstar. You've proven it. But I'm looking forward to just keeping in touch with you, having these every couple of years. You went from 0 to 16 million 2 years later. Let's see where we're at. I know one day, who knows? We'll do it when you hit the 100 million.
There we go. There we go. I appreciate you, Dan. Thank you for having me. And thanks for always being a great resource. I appreciate you sharing so openly. It's been a great model for me and a lot of other good agents, your transparency, your humbleness in how you learn and your transparency to actually help other people. So thank you for what you do. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, this is what the channel's all about. If I'm going through some struggles, then might as well, have other people learn from it, because yeah, it's great to learn from your own, you know, issues, but why not learn from each other's too? So also the same thing with the wins. So I am now officially in the market to purchase book of business now. You got me all fired up. So appreciate your time, and I'll pretty sure I'll be contacting you for my advice when one comes up.
Sounds like a plan, Dan. Thanks again.
All right, thanks.